Hey, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Ron Luce, doing the solo show today. But ladies and gentlemen, what a game we're talking about today. What a series. Just what a weekend if you are the Chicago Cubs. Before we get going, I do want to remind everybody that Cubs on Tap is the official Cubs podcast of the On Tap Sports Network. You can go and check out all of our great work over at www.ontapsportsnet.com and at On Tap Sportsnet on social media. Make sure you follow the Cubs on Tap specific accounts at Cubbies on Tap. That's Cubbies on Tap. That's Twitter and Instagram. I am at Loose on Tap. Follow all of our other great contributors as well at Cody on Tap, at Juice on Tap, at Joe on Tap. Now that he's changed his Twitter handle, at Marty Laval, at the Riot 326, and everybody else that does great work for the On Tap Sports Network over here, and especially at Cubs on Tap. Bulls, Bears, Blackhawks, we got it all as well. And yes, Cubs fans, we all have that friend that likes the White Sox. You get it. Bring them over. Our Sox on Tap crew does a good job. OnTapSportsNet.com and at OnTapSportsNet on social media. So let's dive into this thing. We got all the pleasantries out of the way. Usually that's at the end of the show, but let's talk a little bit about both games. Why don't we? No show, obviously, for us here at Cubs on Tap yesterday. So we'll talk a little bit about that one because the Cubs able to walk it off against the Pirates on Saturday, 7-6. Things looked pretty bleak, especially early in this game. Excuse me here while I deal with fan issues, pardon me. But Yoshi Tsutsugo hit his 6th home run of the season at the time in that game yesterday. Didn't look good early on for the Cubs. Didn't matter. They had a big 4th inning, singles from Duffy, a ground out from Hayward, and a ground out from Alcantara. Were able to score some runs, make it 3-1. And then all hell broke loose. Top of the 5th, Pirates adding 5 runs of their own before Frank Schwendell tied it in the 5th. And then in the 9th, Cubs able to work their way back down 2, ultimately with that incredible slide by Frank Schwendell, who we're going to talk a lot about here on this show because, it was the Frank Schwendell weekend. And then today, what a crazy game today. Again, ironically, Tsutsugo in the 1st inning, again for the Pirates, gets things going, is able to give them an early lead again, and it ultimately didn't matter again because bottom of the 2nd, Matt Duffy, Jason Hayward go back-to-back, and then the Pirates do the unthinkable, hit a grand slam in the top of the 3rd, but it didn't matter because in the bottom of the 3rd, Ian Happ able to make it a 5-3 game, and then Duffy, 2nd home run of the game, grand slam variety as well, made it 7-5. We all know what happened then. Wild pitch, as well as a sac fly in that 5th inning for the Pirates, tied it up, and then ultimately Stallings, single for him, gave the Pittsburgh Pirates the lead, but have no fear, the legend of Frank Schwendell is here because with the bases juiced, hits a monster grand slam, and that is ultimately your final day. Cubs bullpen takes care of business, and they get the job done in the late innings, and that's really all you could ask for. And let's start, however, today with Frank Schwendell, because what a story this guy is right now. He's been incredible. He's done nothing but hit since he's gotten to the Cubs. I know entering today's action, he was hitting 357, and that's only getting better because officially he goes 3 for 4. That's back. At least it might be back-to-back 3-hit days for him. It might be back-to-back 3-hit days for him, actually, as he had 3 hits on Friday as well. But just what a story. Again, a guy that never really got an opportunity. He didn't debut until 2019 with the Kansas City Royals. Doesn't have a home there. Didn't even play during 2020. And then in 2021, starts it out with the Oakland Athletics. When Mitch Moreland returned, they ultimately DFA'd him. The Cubs knew of the impending sell-off and went ahead and acquired him on waivers and hasn't looked back ever since he's gotten to the Cubs. Been absolutely unbelievable. And just what a weekend. What a story. Again, the legend of Frank Schwendell. I feel like the 2021 Chicago Cubs season, just as a whole, when you look at it from that 10,000-foot view, truly is remarkable if you really can take everything into consideration, because you have a team coming in with high expectations because of the nature of the impending free agents, the Anthony Rizzo and Bryant and Baez and so many of these other guys. The lack of a pitching, group, the return of Jake Arrieta. It was a weird kind of narrative around this team coming into 2021. And then they get hot, right? May, everything's looking good. Even in June, they're still in first place. And then an 11-game losing streak. I mean, it's a movie at this point right now. And sure, obviously this movie doesn't end in 2021. It can't end in 2021, but it can certainly start in 2021 because even after the sell-off, even after this team dove in the standings. And sure, they're not winning a lot of games right now, obviously winning 6 in a row right now after today's victory, but just because they're not winning a lot of games, they're still fun to watch, and there's still plenty to watch here for Cubs fans that are dying to, find whatever it is that they need to find in order to follow this team. Let's talk about a Frank Schwendell. Let's talk about a Patrick Wisdom, who is in perfect position right now to break Chris Bryant's home run record for rookies, for Chicago Cubs players. Let's talk about some of these guys who are competing for not only really spots in 2022 potentially on the Cubs, just for their entire really careers that they're hanging on to at this point, with guys like Schwendell who are approaching 30. Wisdom turned 30 just a couple weeks ago. So for these guys to be able to keep their major league careers alive and going, that in general is just such a great story. And like Cody on tap jumps in here, the Tank crowd is really upset. And you know what, Cody, I think you're right. I think the Tank crowd is really upset because, and Cody, ironically, you and I talked about this on Friday's episode, and those that haven't listened, I encourage you to do so. It was a great episode. Cody and I had about an hour and some change of great content. And, we talked about it at great length, where baseball is not the same as an NBA or an NFL even, or an NHL even to an extent, in terms of a top draft pick being able to help you almost immediately, right? I mean, obviously the NFL, draft picks are expected to help you immediately. In the NBA, top draft picks are expected to help you immediately. And even to an extent in the NHL, sure, it's a little more limited based on, it's usually your 1 through 4 guys that might make the roster year one. But in baseball, you almost never see a guy called up in his draft year. It's very, very rare. Like the fact that Garrett Crochet did what he did on the South Side and came up right after being drafted and actually was on the big league roster during the shortened 2020 season. I think that's a testament to just that he was maybe a little further along than most. But let's be honest, even top draft picks in baseball take a couple years to get to the major league. So in a season where, the Cubs aren't good, but like if they tank, what difference does that make? What real difference is pick 6 versus pick 7? There's probably not a lot if we're being truthful. So that's what makes this fun, because this team is still just at least making Cubs baseball fun. They're still going to be in a position to add a very good prospect in next year's draft. And I think we all sit here and hope that this team isn't the same, obviously, but they're a little more competitive. And what I mean by that is at least competitive in the NL Central race. I don't think they're going to be World Series contenders necessarily in 22, but you would at least like to see them competing maybe for a playoff spot, at least maybe for a division crown. To me, if they're within 6 games of, the first place team in the NL Central next season by the end of the year, if it's not them, to me, that's a win. As long as they're competitive and winning games and making things interesting. But like, this season, we're seeing some of the guys that are making a case to be a part of that roster next year. And again, Frank Schwendell, yes, just like Aaron says here in all capital letters, Frank Schwendell, the legend of Big Frank Schwendell, is such an incredible story. And really, I think he's captured all Cubs fans' hearts and emotions. And he's doing so many great things for this team. He's playing a good defensive first base. I mean, granted, he doesn't need to be, elite defensively at first base, but he still is doing such great things over there. But that bat, he's not striking out a lot. He's having hits, and he's not always just hitting for power. I think it's kind of fun having him and Patrick Wisdom on the same infield, because you have Patty Wise, who is more the true power hitter. And then you have Frank Schwendell, who can hit home runs, but he's a very complete hitter. Again, he's hitting over 350 since he's gotten to the Cubs. I mean, he's hitting at an absolutely insane clip right now. And today's game just further adds to that. But I mean, what a game. What a game. You had Matt Duffy have 2 home runs today, which was absolutely incredible. His second and third of the season in one of the Grand Slam variety, tied his career high in RBIs for a single game. And then you have Frank Schwendell playing hero at the end of the game with the bases juiced and you're down a couple runs. Or down a run, and you're able to, and get things going. And you know what? I'm going to bring up another Aaron comment. Like, what am I even watching with this team? I think that's what makes this team such a conundrum, Aaron. I really do, because, they aren't supposed to be good. They aren't supposed to even like be competitive or even win games. A lot of people were like, oh, the Cubs are going to lose 100 games. At this pace, I don't know if they're going to be able to get to 100. And that's saying something because they're at what, 75 losses right now? You know, they only need 25 losses, but there's only like 30-something games left in the season. They're not getting to 100 losses, contrary to what a lot of people thought after the sell-off, because guys like Frank Schwendell, guys like Rafael Ortega, you know, guys like Sergio Alcantara to an extent, Ian Happ heating up the way he has. These guys are at least making things interesting and competing for a spot on this roster in 2022. And I absolutely love, Aaron, another comment of yours, what you have to say here about Frank being a sneaky DH in 2022 if the NL, in fact, gets the DH. This offseason is going to be crazy. And the reason I say that is because the collective bargaining agreement doesn't necessarily impact the AL teams as much as it does NL, because if the DH comes to the NL, that dramatically changes how you project your roster for 2022 compared to years past. I completely agree with Aaron here. I think Frank Schwendell, especially if they go out and sign a first baseman that is maybe better defensively. I know a lot of people are calling for Anthony Rizzo to be re-signed. Let's say that is the case. Let's say Rizzo is re-signed and comes back and plays first base every day. You absolutely can have a guy like Frank Schwendell on the roster, allow him to DH multiple times a week, and then if Rizzo needs a day here and there and you want to let him DH, you can let Frank play first base, and all will be fine in the world. And I really think right now Frank Schwendell is making a case to be on this Cubs team next season. Him and Patrick Wisdom to me right now are the two that are making their case well known of, hey, even if you guys go out and buy a couple bats and maybe a pitcher or two and at least look a little more competitive in 2022, we want to be here. Like, we should be a part of this roster. And I think they have a case. I mean, look at Patrick Wisdom playing very good defense over at third base, hitting a lot of home runs. You know, that his OPS has never wavered under 800 this season, even when he's cooled off, and he's had his ebbs and flows, but I think he's due. I wouldn't be surprised if this coming week he might break Chris Bryant's record or even at least tie it. And, you know, Frank Schwendell with his incredible run, Ian Happ. I mean, these guys are so fun right now to watch. And I agree with you, Aaron. I do think Frank could be a very sneaky DH signing in 22 if the NL gets a DH. Because, again, here's a guy that he fits the mold of what the Cubs are trying to get more of, and that's guys that don't strike out as much. You know, fans and I, myself included, you know, whined and bitched about this team for multiple years that, hey, it was either the home run ball or bust, you know, home run ball or strikeout, home run ball or this. Now, you know, they have some of these guys that can hit for contact. Yeah, you need power hitters. And that's why a guy like Patrick Wisdom, I think, is important. That's why I think them going and getting a guy like my boy Nick Castellanos would be fantastic and bringing him back to the north side. You need those power bats. But it's great having these guys that can do it all, right? You have guys like Frank Schwendell who hit for high average while also being able to hit for some power. You have guys like Ian Happ who, if he can be like the August and September version of himself, could really be an important piece on this team. Cody brought up a good point about Ian Happ the other day as well, that he seems to be better playing in that corner outfield spot. It seems like there's a lot less pressure on him when he is in a corner outfield spot. You know, either left or right, probably left more than right, but nonetheless, he's been hitting well today. A perfect example in today's game. Ian Happ with the nice little poke out to left field on a ball that was really far, almost off the plate, really, and low to the, you know, to his opposite side. And he's able to just stick the bat out, poke it to the other side, and drive in a run early in the game. That was a huge play at the time and good things to see. And then, I mean, just absolute insanity in today's game. And I think something else too that really goes underappreciated and just under-discussed really right now with this Cubs team is kind of how the bullpen is just starting to formulate itself. I'm really intrigued by the bullpen. I really like to watch this bullpen now. Sure, the Andrew Chafins and the Ryan Taperas and the Craig Kimbrells of the world aren't there anymore, but Rowan Wick looks good. Sure, today he was a little shaky, but struck out the side in his save on Friday against this same Pirates team. Cody Hoyer continues to just look excellent. You know, pretty much guaranteed for a strikeout every appearance, but he doesn't give up a lot of hard contact at all. That sinker really plays well for him, his kind of that sinker-slider combination that he likes to lean on. Manny Rodriguez is another perfect example, a guy that's able to touch, 100 miles per hour with a fastball, and then he's able to come back and hit you with that wicked breaking ball that still sits at almost 90 miles per hour. There are pieces in this Cubs bullpen that are going to make them exciting. And there's a lot of guys that are hurt or on the way next year that Cody and I mentioned on Friday's show. Ben Leeper is a guy that's down in AAA right now. You got Burl Caraway, who's been promoted, I believe, to AA Tennessee. So he's going to get a little work at AA before the end of the season. They have the ability to have an elite bullpen next year. I think as soon as next year, because they have a lot of good pieces and they've been getting the job done. I mean, look at on Saturday's game, in yesterday's game, Kyle Hendricks only able to go 4 1/3 after giving up 6 earned runs. But Meagle comes in and gets out of a jam in the 5th inning. He pitched only 2/3 of an inning, but a clean sheet for him minus a hit. But then Rucker comes in for 2 innings, only walks 1 hit, gives up 1 hit, but strikes out 3. Brothers actually looked good in yesterday's game, which is different than obviously today's narrative, but he struck out 2 and only gave up a hit in an inning of work. And then Efros, your winning pitcher yesterday, struck out 1, gave up 1 hit in his only inning of work. And then you look at even today's game. Sure, Davies was not good. 4 innings, 8 hits, 6 earned runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts for him. Obviously, the 2 long balls, 1 being the grand slam, certainly hurt him. But, Brothers came in, had a rough day today. That happens. And Manny Rodriguez sadly charged with the blown save, which I think is a little silly personally, but that's neither here nor there. And then you had Morgan come in, only is able to give you a third of an inning of work. But how about Adbert Alzolay coming in, an inning and 2/3 out of the pen, 2 Ks, no walks, 1 hit, and then Wick goes 2 innings, did walk 2, but did not give up any hits and struck out 2. That's his 3rd save of the season. So there are the pieces here that this team really can be something, and they can be something a lot quicker. And I'm going to continue to beat this narrative like a dead horse. Cody and I talked about it on Friday's show. Friday's show is full of a lot of good stuff. Please go listen if you haven't already. I promise you will enjoy it. It's a good show. We call out a couple people of stupid narratives that have been tweeted at us on Twitter. It was fun. It was a good show, especially after a Cubs win. And now we got a Cubs sweep. Cubs have won 6 in a row going into Labor Day with the Cincinnati Reds coming to town for a absolutely sensationally beautiful 120 first pitch at beautiful Wrigley Field on Monday. If you're off and able to enjoy the holiday, probably going to be a perfect day to be out at the ballpark. And we're going to get to that game here in just a few minutes. But this team is a lot of fun, and it's refreshing, and it's cool to see because, I think we were all as a fan base so down on where this team was going after the sell-off. We said, what are we going to see this year? And I think a lot of people said, hey, we just want to see something that shows that there's development happening and that there is something to look forward to in 2022 with this team. And so far, they've done that. They've done that with guys like Frank Schwendell, who was the hero of today's game. I would argue a guy like Matt Duffy is still in the conversation for a spot on this team next year. Obviously, 2 home run day today for him. Patrick Wisdom didn't do a lot today, but has continued in this run to be a difference maker. And in the bullpen, I think is where a lot of these guys are really starting to separate themselves, like Cody Hoyer and Manny Rodriguez and Rowan Wick, as guys that can be high leverage arms in 2022. When this team hopefully is a little more competitive than they are right now. And, I love what Aaron continues to hammer back. He says people roasted Cody for saying something about having a 500 month. And he said it could be north of 500. It absolutely could, especially when you look at their schedule. They don't play a terribly hard schedule in the month of September. I mean, they have a series with the Cincinnati Reds coming up. They have an off day, and then they're still home for the San Francisco Giants over the weekend, which that's a very good team. And obviously KB returns to Wrigley. I'll be there Saturday myself. I'm very excited about that. But then after that, again, it's not an impressive schedule. They got the Cardinals a couple times. They got the Pirates again, at least one more series before the end of the year. Teddy Freddy 270 said it at the top of the show. Cards lost on a walk-off slam. You hate to see it. They sure did. I think they actually lost to the Pirates the other day on a walk-off slam too. I think Tatugo hit one when they were playing the Pirates really recently, as a matter of fact. They don't really play that impressive of a schedule the rest of the year. So I think this is a really good opportunity for the Cubs to be in these high leverage situations, be in games, make it competitive, so that way these young guys that are going to be a part of the roster going forward can get that ability to work high leverage situations and whatnot. And then in addition, have that ability, to play competitive baseball. Again, Cody Hoyer, Manny Rodriguez, and Rowan Wick pitching in non-save spots are instances where they don't have a lead or they're trying to preserve maybe only a 1 or 2 run deficit. That doesn't help them develop if they're pitching down 5 or 6 runs every single game. But if you're in the game and these guys are coming in high leverage spots, that's only helping their development for next season and beyond. That's only going to help if they call up a couple guys here in September, because sure, they haven't done a ton of September call-ups yet, but that's also because a lot of their seasons are still going. They want to let these guys play out in the minor leagues. We'll probably see 1 or 2 or 3 more guys probably be called up at some point here in September and maybe get a look. Looking at Alfonso Rivas, that's a perfect example. If he's able to get in there and get a lot of work. They have the ability, and especially if Nico Horner gets back and at least plays for a couple of weeks, those couple of weeks are going to be very important for him, because like Cody and I have reiterated, I know everybody wants to label him he's hurt. He can't make it in this league. He hasn't even played a full season of games yet, ladies and gentlemen. I believe he's only had 107 career Major League games, and that's spread across 3 seasons. So let's give the kid a break. He could use a lot of development and good experience playing every day here in September as well. So there's a lot of stuff, truth be told, to be excited about with this Cubs team. Even in this season, they're fun to watch right now. I think a lot of us were concerned going into the year that this Cubs team wasn't going to be exciting in September, and that we were already going to be, hoping and praying for Bears football and looking to find other things to watch and stuff like that. The Cubs are fun to watch right now. I want to get back out to Wrigley more than once this month to go see them play again. They have a lot going. And again, it might not be the big names, the Rizzos and the Baez's and the Bryants of the world, but they're guys that are fun to watch. They're guys that are playing their hearts out, and these guys don't quit. And I think that's something that's been very apparent with this team as well, because they're not afraid to challenge teams and say, we can come back. Sure, we might be down 2 or 3 runs, but we can come back. And they've done it a couple times. They've actually rallied before and done big things. So a true testament not only to the culture in that locker room and these guys and what they've been able to do, but just that ability to have fun playing baseball, get a win every day if they can. And when they can, at least they've been competitive in games and have made things interesting to watch as a Cubs fan so far here, not only in the month of August, but also now in the month of September, in which they are undefeated. I know Cody pointed that out on Twitter a little bit earlier. So what a game today, ladies and gents. Obviously, doing this myself, it's going to be a little bit shorter of a show today, but an incredible game. If you didn't get to watch it, I highly recommend watching it. It's going to be back on Marquee Network, I believe at about 9 o'clock tonight. If I check the local listings again, it will be back on. I highly recommend it. Even if you're just at home and just chilling tonight and you want to watch something again, it'd probably be a fun game to just throw back on and just be like, wow. And, maybe things you missed during the regular broadcast and stuff. I know I do that sometimes, and it's actually a lot of fun to do. Also worth noting, before we go ahead and preview Monday's game, South Bend Cubs are on Marquee. They're actually, I think, playing right now. So if you are watching this live, I highly recommend it. And if you aren't watching this live, my recommendation is be sure to stay on top of when Marquee's broadcasting some of these minor league games, because they only have a couple weeks left. And I think they only have maybe 3 or 4 more minor league games going to be broadcast on Marquee. This is an opportunity to see some guys that we might see next year or even in 2023, and especially tonight, because for the South Bend Cubs, Jordan Wicks is pitching for South Bend. He's making his minor league affiliate debut with the Cubs. He's been doing some throwing, I think, in Arizona with the team's facilities and coaches, but now he's actually going to get some live game action out in South Bend tonight, which is actually their final home game as well. So if you're watching this live, I highly recommend you go watch it. And if you're not watching live and you missed it, I highly recommend make sure you check out what few remaining games for the minor leaguers are going to be on, because this is a really good opportunity on Marquee to see some of these guys, before the season ends effectively. And we, are just talking about them in the off season. So once again, Saturday, Cubs walk it off, 7-6 victory. And today on Sunday, the Cubs win 11-8 thanks to Frank Schwendell's grand slam. The third grand slam of the game, too, which I think was incredible about today's game. 3 grand slams between the two teams, 2 for the Cubs and 1 for the Pirates today. So let's go ahead and look forward to Monday's game, in which the Reds do pay a visit to the Chicago Cubs at beautiful Wrigley Field here in Chicago, Illinois. It is a 1:21 pitch, with it being the holiday, so that'll be nice. Day baseball is always a beauty. For the Reds, you can listen to the game if you're in Cincinnati. WLW 700, Valley Sports Ohio is where you can catch tomorrow's game. And then for the Cubs, your usual suspects, 670 The Score, WRTO 1200, and Marquee Sports Network. For the Reds, they will be trotting out Sonny Gray, the right-hander, 7-6 on the season with a 3.89 ERA and 127 Ks. As for the Cubs, they are trotting out left-handed starter Justin Steele, He is 3-2, picked up his first win as a starter actually in his last outing. He's 3-2 on the season, as I mentioned, 3.48 ERA for him and 35 Ks, obviously worked out of the bullpen for a large chunk of the season. So he will be making his fourth start now for this Cubs team this late in the year. So he's going to be, that's always must-watch TV at this point because he is certainly competing for a roster spot and a rotation spot next season. As for a fly the W pick, I'm actually taking a look at the stats right now, and Robinson Chirinos is ironically very, very good against Sonny Gray. However, I'm not entirely sure if he's going to play tomorrow. I expect Willie to get some work tomorrow and probably catch for steal. So if Contreras is in fact in the game, he's batting .231 in 13 appearances against Sonny Gray. And Jason Hayward, the only other person with double-digit plate appearances against Gray, is actually only batting .105, but does have a home run and 3 RBIs. I think with all of that being said, I'm going to look to a guy who continues to be hot. And as easy as I want to pick Frank Schwendell, because I would really like to pick Frank for Monday's game, I'm actually going to go ahead and pick Ian Happ because in 8 plate appearances, he's batting .375 with 2 RBIs against Sonny Gray in his career, and he's been hot. And again, I think he bats better from the left side rather than the right. Sonny Gray's a right-handed pitcher, so I would expect Ian Happ to be a good choice for tomorrow's Fly the W player. But if you wanted to pick Frank Schwendell, that's probably not a bad pick either. So I'm going to go ahead and roll with Ian Happ into tomorrow. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to those that watched live. If you listened to this as a podcast, we hope you enjoyed it. We will be back after tomorrow's game when they take on their Cincinnati Reds at Wrigley Field. Hopefully the Cubs can make it 7 straight against the Reds tomorrow. As I mentioned, Sonny Gray will be on the mound for the Reds, and for the Cubs, it will be Justin Steele. So again, must-watch TV for Cubs fans, in my opinion, is when Justin Steele is on the mound. So from myself, Ron Luce, we hope you enjoyed the show. We hope you enjoy your Labor Day weekend. Be safe, be healthy, enjoy time with family and friends, get some relaxation in, maybe get out to the ballpark tomorrow if you're off. It's going to be a beautiful day here in Chicago. I know I wish I could be out there. Sadly, I can't. But we will be watching from home. And like I said, Cubs on Tap will be back after tomorrow's game. So like I said, from Ron Luce, from Cody, everybody here at On Tap, we thank you for listening. We thank you for watching if you watched live. And I'm going to go ahead and get out of here the only way we know how to, ladies and gentlemen, here at Cubs on Tap. Let's go Cubbies.